Hello and welcome to episode 122 of the Player 3 podcast. I'm your host, Luke Croft, and alongside me, he can fix you a nice delicious glass of Pepsi and steal your daughter's heart, ladies and gentlemen, Douglas Martin. Not just Doug Martin, Douglas Martin.
The triple OG. The realist.
What are all three of those words?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you.
Like, if you told me you'd have to kill me?
If I told you, Larry would be out of a job.
Oh, okay. All right, great. And
it's just how he spells Douglas. Douglos.
Douglas.
The glass.
He's an elf. And that sultry voice you hear is none other than the always visually stunning Larry Hunt.
Hi.
See, it doesn't work when that's not the first thing you say on the podcast. Because you were in the double OG conversation with such gusto that to come back off of it to give a solemn hi as if you were greeting somebody at, a funeral, it just doesn't quite have it.
Look, no matter what I say before or after the intro, I still feel awkward in the intro.
You shouldn't, because we're all friends here, Larry.
He's just a youth minister with problems with icebreakers.
Mm-hmm. How are you doing, my friend?
Strong.
Ill.
Yeah, this is basically the Player 3 Snotcast this week, because I am also feeling a little under the weather. And Seth, how are you feeling?
I be good all the time. Non-stop. For shizzle. I mean, when you fly, you know what I'm saying? And
I have no idea what's happening
and when you reel, you good.
But how can you be real if your eyes aren't real?
Well, let's talk some... Don't you ever talk about my eyes. Don't you ever talk about my eyes. End of sentence.
Well, you sounded like you were about to start saying something else, but before you do that, we are the Player 3 Podcast. We get together every Monday over here on twitch.tv/Player3Podcast. Push it out to you on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher. Leave us a review. Larry will read it in whatever accent you ask him to. Yeah. Within reason. I don't know, would you read it in a dog accent?
That's fine. I'd try to be Scooby-Doo. That's how that would play out.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right.
I would also do Goldfish, where I just do this the whole time.
All right, let's move on.
I could do Monster, or it's just growling.
So if you want to hear more of that, leave us a review about how bad it is. 2-star reviews only, please. All right, let's move on to everybody's first segment. What have you been consuming? What have you been consuming, Larry?
The Destiny raid. We've been doing that. Blind. And we've been doing pretty good, I think.
It's almost like we've played a video game before.
Almost.
But not quite. No. But we are making our way downtown, walking fast, faces past on Homebound. Yeah. We figured out all 3 parts of the what are they called? Trials, challenges.
The encounters.
Yeah. Oh, you have done all 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But now we just need to string them together
and then do
punch
the
Callus
actual...
in the mouth.
Yeah. Which I assume is a lot harder than just punching Callus in the mouth. Would you like to give us a detailed breakdown of what to expect?
In a sense. All I'm saying is...
Oh, gosh, here we go.
Don't shoot the cup.
Moving on. All right. What else, Larry?
See, last night I thought about all my answers to this question. Mm-hmm. I didn't write any of them down. Been listening to No Sleep podcast. Pretty good this week. I binged that Snap Judgment Spooked podcast, and I... thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thoroughly enjoyed the story about the bar with the painting.
Yeah, that was
a
an
time loop
one.
episode. I like that one. Yeah, I'm about halfway through.
Nice. What else? Creepy. Been listening to the Creepy podcast because they're doing something every day of October.
Would you recommend?
I will give you a soft recommendation.
Okay.
I haven't listened to a lot of it yet, but it's all creepypastas.
Okay, I love pasta.
It's all read by the guy from Small Town Horror, though, who... That's really mean. He's not my favorite person to listen to.
Right. That's fine. It's fair enough. You can not like somebody's voice, I mean...
Okay.
So...
And it's not even his fault. He just sounds like a guy I went to high school with who I'd rather not ever think about again.
I understand.
Yeah.
All right, anything else?
We're almost to the end of Season 3 of Star Wars Rebels. Very excited.
Now, you're watching that with your daughter, right?
Yes.
Is she learning?
Yeah,
Because it gives you an excuse to watch cartoons.
absolutely. She's learning how to swing a lightsaber at people. What else do you need?
Exactly.
And, that's all I've got right now.
Mr. Hunt, we're going to have to ask you to come pick up Remy today.
She's literally stabbed several children. How mad would you be? Not at all?
It depends. Well, if she stabbed people, yeah. See, I've often thought about what happens when I get older, because, my daughter's going to grow up knowing how to defend herself. So if some punk ever tries to, hit her, it's going to be a bad day for her. And I've always imagined how that conversation's going to go. Because I think zero tolerance policies in schools are the dumbest thing ever. One time I watched this boy get beat up. All he did was lay on the floor in a fetal position. He got suspended for fighting.
Yeah,
he wasn't fighting. He just got beat up.
The fetal position is it's passive aggression.
So here's what's going to happen. They call me in. They're like, Mr. Hunt, your daughter was in a fight. And I'm like, well, who started it? If it was her, she's in trouble. If it wasn't her, I'm like, all right, what happened? And then I'm going to offer her some critique on her form. And
the thing is, Larry is not joking about any of this. This is literally how this.
I'm gonna need the footage.
And then we're gonna go get ice cream.
Are you gonna request the security footage from the hallway?
Yes.
To
I hadn't
be
thought
able
about it,
to be able
but
to break
I'm
it down. Yeah, that's a great idea. Well, see, here's the reason zero tolerance policies exist, my friend. It's so situations like that don't occur where you think, well, if I just lay down, I'm not going to be in trouble. All right. See, so a zero tolerance policy is just giving you the free reign. I'm going to get suspended anyway. Might as well row,
That makes sense.
All right.
Thank you for enlightening me.
You're welcome.
How much English television have you been watching recently?
Because I use the word row.
Yeah.
Oh,
You don't hear that in the South much.
Seth, what have you been consuming?
Pounds and pounds of raw beef. I can't get enough.
I have so many tapeworms right now. You get tapeworms? I don't know.
Probably. I've been consuming a plethora of media. I finished reading The Handmaid's Tale.
Next.
Great novel. I started watching The Handmaid's Tale. Mm-hmm. Pretty good show.
Who's that have in it?
It has Peggy from Mad Men. Don't know her name.
Okay.
Ralph Fiennes, I think is his name, and it has quite a few people that I recognize but don't know.
Right. Well, I don't assume you know any of them, considering, they're television stars. And how many television stars do you really know?
What was that song I sang to Larry before the show started? Anyway, so that lot of maids in my life right now. I have finished Shadow, or I'll talk about it later. I've finished as much of Shadow of War as I'm going to play. Dabbled into Overwatch. Talk about that later too.
Yeah, we will.
Really, that's mostly it. I've been watching Bridget play a lot of Friday the 13th still. She can't get enough of it.
I see it, every time I'm on my Xbox, I see either you or Bridget on playing.
It's just Bridget.
Okay.
She'll throw me the controller every once in a while when she wants to go take a poop or something like that, and that's as much as I need.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
My cousin told me my wife's cousin told us this great story about he was paired up with this guy who's being a real jerk, telling everybody what to do.
Uh-huh.
And at the end of the match, he had the car driving away. And the guy got in the passenger seat and started telling him what to do. So he backed the car up to beside Jason and let him yank him out of the car and then drove off.
There's some really I've gotten to the point where we all know that there are glitches and things in the game, and it's gotten much better than it used to be as far as playability. But there are some things that just from the kind of B-movie nature of Friday the 13th as a film franchise. It just makes me appreciate these glitches all the more. It's happened a couple of times. It happened to us for the first time just last week. And we get in the car, but somehow Jason comes to pull us out of the car. And this is where the glitch occurred, because he pulls us out, but he doesn't keep a hold on us. Basically, we stay in seat position, but we're floating through the air. And we just floated all the way to, he got distracted by somebody else, and we just, in driving position, just float casually all the way through the map and to the exit, and just floated out scot-free. It was great.
The invisible boatmobile?
Yeah, basically. Forgot about that. Luke, talk to me.
Okay. Been playing a lot of 2K. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Just a copious amount of 2K. Played a little bit of Cuphead. Been playing the raid with you guys. Well, with you, Larry. And then I'm consumed in this Mindhunter show. It's everything I want a television show to be. Mostly just because I love anything with serial killers in it. And the fact that it's real life serial killers who I've read about.
Books, movies, my home.
What do you know about Lauren that I don't?
You'll find out.
Oh, okay, interesting. Watched a really good, well, I'm not going to say really good, a good movie on Netflix this weekend. I never watch movies, do I, Seth?
No, never.
But Lauren was out of town this weekend, so I had my fix of 2K. Couldn't watch Mindhunter without her. So I'm perusing through Netflix, and there's a Netflix original movie called 1922, based off of the Stephen King novella.
Oh, is that a movie? I thought it was a
No, it's just a movie.
Okay.
It was good. It was pleasant to watch. It's a horror movie, obviously, because I watched it.
The Stephen King movie was pleasant to watch.
So it's about this plains farmer in 1922.
Spoilers.
Who, well, if you watch the trailer, you're going to get all this. Who ends up killing his wife, and the whole story is about. Have you actually read the novella?
No. Stephen King has way too many books for any human to ever read.
So,
Accepted.
But it's all about the downward spiral into madness after committing such a heinous act. But it's well acted in a lot of ways. So I always get frustrated with Lauren because she always has to turn the subtitles onto a show. And I don't know how you guys feel about closed captioning or subtitles, but I hate it because it'll put up like 2 or 3 lines of text and it spoils something that's going to be said. And but she watches a lot of British shows and can't understand anything Zephyr says, so we end up having to turn the closed captioning on. And I always turn it off because I don't like it. But I had to turn it on a couple times in this one. So the guy plays like, I'm trying to remember what state the thing takes place in, but he's got a real country accent, but he talks like this, and he doesn't open up his mouth. And there were some scenes where he was just almost incomprehensible. Not uncomprehensible?
Incomprehensible.
Incomprehensible.
That was creepy.
Or he did not talk good.
Yeah, he didn't talk very good. But what I appreciated about the movie is he plays this kind of southern, rural, country farmer, but he's not portrayed or written as being stupid. He's very calculated, very intellectual, and I appreciated that. So, if you have an hour and a half and want to watch kind of it's not a scary movie, but it's creepy and unsettling.
Is it more of like a thriller than a horror film? Or?
No, thriller's not really a good word for it either. It's more just like a psychological...
A slow descent into madness.
Basically. Yeah, that's what it is. So,
right. That should be a genre.
So I would recommend it. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but I think that's about it. So let's move on to the releases of the week.
The releases of the week.
Clap.
Interesting.
Brevity.
All right, so coming out on both consoles this week, we have Assassin's Creed Origins.
Ooh.
Seth.
Yeah.
Talk to me. You're a big Assassin's Creed guy.
Oh, we live up in here. I am very ready, especially after playing Shadow of War and spoilers for later in the show, being kind of disappointed with it in the end. I'm really anxious to see what this game's all about, and to hopefully dive back into something that kind of stays true to the franchise, but it mixes things up in some ways. Mm-hmm. And again, we've heard, if you read any game news, that some people think that this game hasn't changed enough. I don't want them to reinvent the wheel. I just want them to, change some story devices and some gameplay in order to kind of freshen this up a little bit, but remind me why I've missed this franchise in the past couple of years.
Yeah, I'm more interested from it. As you know, I care much. I like playing video games. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But what intrigues me so much about being in this hobby is the industry's reaction to the way that games are made, the way that games are sold, and we're going to talk a lot about industry here when we get to topics. But I think Assassin's Creed Origins is going to be a very important game in terms of the direction that single player only games are going to take from here on out. As we're going to see with some of the news we talk about, and if you've been keeping up in the last couple of weeks with some different changes, especially at EA, like we're moving away from the single player only being like a thing. These big budget AAA single player games, and I think if Assassin's Creed comes out and sells kind of soft, you're going to see another major publisher say, "Oh, well, maybe this isn't worth our money and worth our effort." So I'm really interested to see how this game sells. I'm interested to see how you, as a longtime fan of the series, kind of receives it. So, also releasing on both consoles this week, we have Wolfenstein 2. I don't know if we have any Wolfenstein fans here.
I've had the desire lately to go and play the first one, because despite the views of our president, I love killing Nazis. That's just me. But also like I really enjoy steampunk. I know this is not steampunk,
right?
But I enjoy like the kind of retro future aspect of like this is the past, but there are giant robots and crazy technology. Fallout, I think that's why it appeals to a lot of people. It's just something cool. I love when history is reworked also.
And this is done so smartly. Like, so when I think it was the very first like Wolfenstein of the reboot, so Wolfenstein New Order.
Yeah.
When that launched, I was doing some reading about the development behind that game, and like they went as far as taking like musical historians and saying, all right, let's look at German music in the 1940s, and how do you, and just kind of theorize how that would have evolved had that been like the world dominating culture. And so the music, the art style, like basically everything aesthetically about the game is considered not just from what was it like in the 1940s, but what would it be like today if it had evolved from the 1940s.
If like German culture is integrated. Is like integrated into. That's what I really like about shit like a Man in the High Castle. Part of the reason this game appeals to me is that I feel like I can actually live in that world. Not because I like Nazis. Again, I want to kill them. But yeah, I mean, what's a really interesting thing about that show is like that you see. Some things are like familiar. Like one of the I think it was one of the opening episodes, either the first or second season. I want to say the first was that you like see a school and there are kids going to school and like they're all happy-go-lucky like they were in the 50s and 60s. But all of a sudden you see like instead of a kid in a Boy Scout uniform, it's a kid in like Nazi regalia, and you see like the housewife at home watching TV, smoking a cigarette while her kid's doing homework, and they're watching this like really weird propaganda-y game show, or that just talks about Heil Führer, etc., etc. And it's just crazy to see like something so familiar in this one little thing that isn't so little is just like changes the whole way that you view it.
What makes it so interesting is how close we were in reality to losing that war to Germany, and how outside of a few decisions that changed the tide of all of history, we were very close to losing all of Europe to the Nazis, and so it's interesting to see how that gets worked. Larry, are you a Wolfenstein fan at all?
I've never played it. It seems fun. Might try it out.
All right. Next,
brevity.
Releasing on the PS4, we have Hidden Agenda, which is a game from Supermassive, the studio behind Until Dawn. This is another decision dialogue-based game, but this one is more of a crime thriller, if I understand correctly.
I would love to play it, though. Like, I don't even need to know. Don't tell. I mean, you can tell me, but you don't have to tell me anything about the story. You just tell me the folks that brought me Until Dawn made a new game where you make decisions. I'm in.
Also, what's up, Saltiest Chuck and Phantom Rhythm?
Yo, he remembers the butt bucks.
Yeah, he said, I can't believe the inventor of butt bucks is back and talking about how much he hates the Nazis.
Was the reason, not killing Nazis. Was the reason that you asked me back to the show this week because you enjoyed last week's show so much?
Yeah, I went back and listened to it, and I called Larry after listening to it, and I said, that was a really good episode. I missed the three-man dynamic.
And I said, I don't know what you saw in that episode. I hate having to sit beside Doug.
You know,
I did. I'm pretty sure I forgot deodorant this morning too.
You know,
I was in a rush to get out of the house.
I can't tell.
You know, the pick and roll game is effective, but it's much more effective if you have somebody on the strong side in the corner who can shoot the three, right? And you're our 3-point shooter. Larry knows exactly what I'm talking about. Larry, name for me 5 basketball players.
Lopez.
Dennis Rodman.
Robin
Dennis
Lopez.
Rodman. Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman.
I heard Brooke Lopez.
Yeah, and his brother Robin.
Oh, okay.
Boom. There you go.
Boom.
Yeah.
Steph Curry.
All right, great.
He's
There's
all
3.
over Twitter. There are all kinds of memes. That's how I know that guy.
He threw a
Basketball
mouth
is
guard
my
at a
favorite
referee.
sport.
Yeah, he threw his mouth guard at a referee.
There's a lot of referee hating going on in sports.
Well, refs kind of suck.
That's true. Larry's a soccer coach. You get up in the grill of any refs?
I didn't. I didn't feel like it was my place as the assistant.
What? It's exactly your place. You have to get up in the face of the ref so that the head coach doesn't have to. He gets carded and
That makes sense.
You know,
I'll do
you're
that next
expendable.
year. I'll do that next
Are you
year.
done? Is the season over?
Yeah, it's over.
You should go to a ref's house
Our,
and get in his face.
Our soccer team was convinced that the referees were racist.
Did you win any games?
We won a couple. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Wait, we won one.
Oh, okay.
We won one.
Wait. We did.
Yeah, we did.
Wait,
We did.
I didn't coach soccer this year.
Soccer's the one where you hit the ball with the stick.
It's
right?
it's the one where you show up to tryouts and they just slice your hands off, and they're like, "You're not going to need these."
You know, that would help my team out a lot. If I could.
What you do is you just give them sleeveless jerseys. They just put a potato sack over their arms.
It's a great idea.
I should be a soccer coach. I've already got this figured out. All right. Also releasing this week on the Switch, Super Mario Odyssey.
I want to be really excited for this game. I'm not sure if I am, and not enough to drop 60 bones
Right.
right off the bat. You know, some of us have children on the way.
You do.
I do.
That's the first time on the podcast.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's right.
So send Seth baby gifts.
And all the butt bucks you feel like you can that you can reasonably give.
Right. We'll lavish them on you when the child comes. So
Just make the butt bucks rain from the air conditioning.
now it's already understood the child will be named after me regardless of gender. Middle name or first name or last name?
But Douglas Martin.
What? Oh, Martin. Yeah, he is named after me. That's my middle name. So
Oh, is it?
you didn't know that?
No.
Well, it's pronounced
I thought it was
Martine.
I thought it was Marcus.
That'd be way cooler though. But yeah, back to
Some of us shouldn't probably be playing or buying video games at all. But it's me.
And yet
Oh,
we
okay.
persist.
Because of the child. But
right.
yet, nevertheless, she persisted.
Oh, all right. Let's move on.
Politics.
Let's move on to topics.
Topics. I go first?
Oh,
Or are you just waiting for the nose blowing to see?
no, I just didn't know if you were gonna continue with the jingle.
Oh,
or if
no,
it was just
I'm all
topics.
about brevity today. I think we can get through this whole show in 5 minutes if we need to.
Oh, okay. Let's,
Super Mario Odyssey. Cool. Hidden agenda. What?
you're backtracking. That's taking longer. We've
Why?
already covered that ground.
All right.
Why use many word when few word work fine?
All right.
Me hungry. So, my topic. I talked last week a little bit about Shadow of War, and I was kind of digging it. I wasn't really digging it.
You said if there's one thing I hate more than Nazis, it's orcs.
Basically, yeah. That's a whole other discussion because it kind of people have talked in the last few weeks the same way about this game and New Order because there was the whole thing about Bethesda's ad campaign about killing Nazis. I guess Nazis are offended.
Yeah.
And
we were going to talk about that last week, but it was kind of old news.
Yeah, and people have also discussed the Nemesis system and how eerily good it is to like make you feel bad for some of these orcs, which I can see, but also like they're orcs.
Right.
They're not even. They're like spawned out of a.
And
vat.
they're like not real. So there's that.
Yes, this is true too. But I guess their personalities are
Right.
Anyway, I was enjoying this game. I wasn't loving it. Like I said last week, it was more the same, just with like a buffed up Nemesis system, and then a few extra things here and there. You asked me earlier, Luke, if I finished the game, and I was like, kinda. So there's been some discussion in online reviews too about how the last act of this game is perceived, and some people take it in different ways. To describe it in a way, there's the story of the game that you would think of as like the single player campaign. And if this treads into spoiler territory, I apologize. I don't think it does. I'm not discussing the actual events of the game.
Right.
But so there's the traditional like story mission campaign, and you finish that at the end of the third act. And once you finish it, a fourth act begins, entitled The Shadow Wars.
They dropped a word.
Yeah, they dropped a word.
They added an act and dropped a word. I see what they're doing.
So basically, there's no real story to this act. You spend the majority of the game, like you can't complete the traditional story of this game unless you've captured all 4 fortresses, like each fortress in each of the 5 territories. The 5th one is basically what you do in the last act of the game. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort if you want to do it right. Because just like in Shadow of Mordor, you're whatever you do, possessing captains, dominating captains. That's the word, and making them spy on the higher captains, and then eventually you take down an overlord, who's the biggest of the big orcs, and it takes a lot of time. Like I said, the 4th act of the game is basically doing that over and over again in each area, and either defending or assaulting a stronghold. And I just don't think that there's enough time in the day for people to do this. And
isn't it kind of designed like that though, to kind of encourage you to purchase loot boxes?
That's what I was getting to. A lot of people have.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
You're good. You're good. A lot of people have come out about this because it's a grind, and it's just doing the same thing over and over and over again for hours and hours and hours. The reward at the end is like a 3-minute cutscene that takes place many years later, and it's really like I read a Forbes article yesterday actually that said the best way to enjoy Shadow of War's final act is just not to play it.
Right.
Just look up. I mean, if you really want the story, just look up the cutscene on YouTube. It was posted like the day after the game came out or something like that. And unless you just really, really, really want to play all those hours. But it is so difficult, and the difficulty increases through each mission. It takes very, very long to level up unless you buy with real money or with the minimal amount of in-game currency that the game gifts you through like challenges and things like that, which again takes a lot of time. Unless you're buying loot boxes to get stronger orcs instead of having to go out and track them down yourself and risk like getting killed or risk them running away, or all the endless possibilities that the Nemesis system provides for you. You're spending probably half the amount of time it took you to beat the original campaign, if not more. I would say it was like the same amount of time from what I understand, because again, there's so much work into capturing each of these fortresses when the enemies are so much stronger than you. And that loot box thing, I think, will be a recurring theme in today's show.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be talking about microtransactions.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, and I mean, this was all stuff that was coming out before, prior to the release of the game. A lot of people were coming out saying, hey, this final act. And I think it's good to do what you did. And but part of the problem with loot boxes is the reason they exist is because people buy them, because they work, And I think there's an okay way to do it, and then I think there's like nefarious ways to do it, and I think the way that they went about it is kind of nefarious.
It's tricky. Saltiest Chuck, I like that name, by the way, says, personally, I think that's all part of the fun. The Nemesis system seems a lot more fleshed out. This is true. And if you're a good enough player, you don't need all those loot boxes or orcs. That is true, too. You don't need them, but buying them drastically reduces the amount of time. And I get frustrated with the Nemesis system as like a person with, a relationship, doctor's appointments, a job, things like that. Because the tricky thing about the Nemesis system is anything almost can happen. which is a great thing. It makes it more realistic. Like you can track down this captain, get him weakened, but then another captain pops in at the last second and either kills you or just makes things that much more difficult. Maybe the other captain gets away and you have to track him down all over again if you really wanted that orc for a specific reason or purpose. Sometimes they will be immune to executions or something like that, or if they kill you, you don't have a second chance to get them by doing the quick time event. There you just have no chance, and then you have to redo the whole thing over and over again. So there are just so many variables for me that really add to the time that it potentially takes, especially when going up against stronger orcs that are stronger than you. There's just not enough time in the day. That's my basic point.
All right. Moving on. Larry.
What?
Let's talk about your topic.
All right.
Ooh, skipperoo.
So, sort of related. Mine has the potential to be very brief.
Brevity.
It's obvious that I've been frustrated with Overwatch for some time now.
But let me pause you for just a second because Salty as Chuck says, Overwatch has a good method of loot boxes in my opinion. Segue! Go! All right, go ahead.
Actually, on one level, I do agree with him. Overwatch's loot boxes are purely cosmetic, and they don't affect gameplay at all, and that's the way to do them. And if people want to buy that, that's totally fine. But we've talked before about how there's got to be this balancing out of risk and reward with the loot boxes if you want people to really invest in them. And for me, those of you who've played Overwatch with me, you know that every time they do one of these special events, like it becomes unhealthy. It's an addiction. I am playing every waking moment that I can get an excuse to get on Overwatch, so I can get loot boxes, so I can get those sweet special costumes, those epic skins. And for me, Overwatch has been just cranking up the risk and decreasing the reward. What did Salty say?
No, Phantom Rhythm says, can't be frustrated if you never play it.
That's basically where I was at with Shadow. That's a reference to me. Same thing here. I guess it goes for every game like that.
But, so, the first time they did a special event, you could buy skins for like $750, and there were a couple of special ones that were like 1,000 of in-game currency, but you had a pretty good chance of getting them just through loot boxes. And then the next time they were all like 1,000, but there were a few special ones that were 3,000, until you get to the last couple of events where all the special skins were 3,000, which takes forever to accumulate in in-game currency. You gotta open so many loot boxes, especially when they did away with duplicates. Like, the odds of getting currency are just so low. So it became harder to get currency and more expensive to buy the skins. And then the other thing they did was throw in all this stuff no one cares about: player emblems, player icons, extra sprays, all these tiny things. Yeah. And you're only guaranteed one special event item per loot box. So to summarize, they've decreased your ability to get currency, which was a side effect of something. That wasn't their goal, but that's what happened. Increased how much currency it costs, and decreased your chances of actually getting the skins. And it all just feels like a very big push to try to make you buy the loot boxes.
That's kind of where I'm at, and Salty again brings up a good point, or not. I don't necessarily mean a good point, although I'm not insulting him. It's
Salty
relevant.
Salty brings up a point.
He's salty for a reason. He says, I never spent a dime on skins, and I got a lot of Halloween and Christmas legendaries last year. Key phrase, last year.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask,
a ton.
Salty, when is the last time you played an Overwatch event?
Because I remember also, starting to play off relatively early after the game came out, getting a lot of skins, and I think it really started to change around Year of the Rooster?
Yeah, that event, if you remember, I opened 28 loot boxes and got one skin.
Yeah, I don't think I ever got a skin from that, and I probably opened 15. I jumped on, or I played, what was it, the summer games this year. Mm-hmm. Played for, I probably opened 35, I bought 10, which I've only done twice, never plan to do it again. Bupkis. I mean, I got a couple of last year's skins. I think I got two regular current skins, but they were for characters I never play. And I got really frustrated with it, and I kind of put the game away, put it back on the shelf for a few months, from then until now, and I just jumped on a couple of nights ago and played, got enough to get 3 or 4 Halloween boxes. Only seasonal themed items that I got were player icons. I got a cool little Cthulhu Zen player icon. That's it. No skins, no emotes, no sprays, bupkis. And I really doubt that I'm going to get on after that and just keep playing, because I get that they reduce the the random number equation to keep you playing, but there's a point where it gets just ridiculous. And when you expect people to drop 3,000 player currency on one skin, I mean, it takes forever now to get that player currency. So it's just like they're more like further and further encouraging you to just keep spending real money and in order to get your chance.
Or if you have a little more control over your spending habits, they're encouraging you to be like, all right, well, they've made it not worth it anymore.
Right.
So by this point, I would have dropped like dozens of hours on the event. And I haven't actually touched this one yet. Because every time I think about playing, I'm just like, there are other reasons I'm not playing Overwatch 2. But I'm not even encouraged to go play the PvE stuff because I'm like, I'm not going to get anything.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing about, like, what are you, Junkenstein? Yeah. I actually did play a deathmatch game for the first time and kind of dug that.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't even thought about this game in months. Like,
you were kind of done with it months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I play because I enjoyed playing with you guys, but I would never get on by myself and play. Or so, and part of the reason, there's a lot of reasons. The loot box situation didn't help, and but for me, like the increasing the price of the skins or whatever didn't really bother me, but that's because I only play one character, and I really don't care about that stuff to begin with. So, but I do agree. Like, you walk this fine line where you can either do something like Shadow of War does, where the loot box system is not, I wouldn't say integral, but like it is it makes a difference, makes a gameplay difference that like you're encouraging people to purchase. Or you can do something that is like Overwatch's, where at the end of the day, none of it really matters. And you got to find that balance of like, how do we encourage players to purchase these things? And and I guess I'm going to kind of segue into my topic, and we can continue to talk about this in the midst of it. But the reality of the situation is this: Pandora, the lid on Pandora's box is open when it comes to microtransactions, to loot boxes, to all those sorts of things. And it used to be, we would get so upset about season passes or whatever being announced. But now we're seeing less and less season passes as companies are realizing, like, okay, well, adding new multiplayer maps and a $50 season pass really splits the community up. Now we don't see that as much anymore. But there has to be something to come behind it to replace it. And the reality of the situation is, games are too cheap for the amount of money that these companies are having to put in to make them. So you have these games that are whose budgets are bloating up to 9 figures. They cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make. They've got staffs of hundreds of people working on them, and so selling a game for $60 a piece, you've got to sell a lot of copies in order to recoup just to even break even. But we know companies aren't in the business of breaking even. And for you to think that all they should want to do is recoup their money, that's naive of you.
That's the film industry.
I own a business. Like, I don't want to just make enough to cover my bills. I want to make enough to pay myself a good amount of money. You know, like, that's the nature of it. And I'm going to find ways to make money. And there's multiple ways you can do that. You can create products and add-ons in order to increase your revenue. Obviously, customer service and customer care plays into those things as well. But what we're seeing is that game developers are kind of pigeonholed into this $60 price point. This is as high as we can go, unless we're coming out with like special editions, deluxe editions, whatever, things that require more investment, more development, more capital to do. And but now I think we're at this point where even a price increase for video games isn't going to put the genie back in the bottle when it comes to loot boxes and whatnot.
Right.
But
it's one thing that I understand, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, you're good.
I totally get where they're coming from, because again, like with Overwatch, it's not. There's nothing integral. There's nothing encouraging you to buy to spend actual money on loot boxes except for cosmetic reasons. It's one thing to do that, and it's a totally different thing to make it to pay to win. We talked about this over and over and over again. But it seems like we're picking up on this huge trend, especially with, like, you mentioned Battlefront in here, and I'll let you talk all about that. But with Shadow of War Battlefront, it seems like I'm missing a few. I can't think of it. But I don't know. It's been a huge topic lately. We've been hearing about it for years now, but just more and more and more frequently. I'm hearing other podcasts, I'm hearing other reading other news articles that talk about this and what an issue it isn't necessarily yet, but that it's becoming.
So, yes. So my topic is basically about how this week we got a lot of disappointing news that came as a result of the fact that these big AAA publishers are trying to figure out how they're going to recoup the money that they're having to pour into these super expensive games. And so the very first thing, what you mentioned, Star Wars Battlefront 2, so they had their beta. It turns out the loot box system has some pay-to-win aspects within it. And I'm not going to get into the minutia of it because I didn't get a chance to play the beta. But essentially what happens is some of your upgrades, as far as like different scopes for weapons and these things called star cards that can either be used to apply for an upgrade or be turned in for a different kind of upgrade.
It's they're rescaling, I guess, the way that they worked last year a little bit. They're similar, but there's I guess more depth to them.
So this is from Callie Plaguey over at GameSpot. It says, Battlefront 2's progression system seems almost entirely dependent on loot boxes, which give players a random selection of power-ups, weapons, emotes, and more. However, getting everything you need to get more powerful, even a scope for one weapon, takes an inordinate number of hours if you don't buy extra crates, seemingly forcing players to spend money to win. Star Wars Battlefront 2 launches on November 17th, though much of the actual game was overshadowed by the glaring microtransaction issues. We were impressed with some of what we played, and then links to the stuff. But basically, she's saying what we're saying, that there is... It seems that there are certain items and power-ups that are tied to these loot boxes that, much like Shadow of War, you can do it without paying any money, but the amount of time it's going to take for you to do it isn't worth it in the end.
Exactly. And this is really troubling to me because I am really looking forward to this game. I really want to play this single-player campaign. I really want to do what I hoped to do in Battlefront 1 a couple of years ago now, which is play across all three of these sagas and play with characters from all three of these sagas. And just the fact that I'm going to potentially have to grind again. I don't mind spending time playing something that I love, but I do mind my progress being impeded by something like this. And again, like I was trying to say before, and I think I got distracted by saying the same point for the third or fourth time, is that I understand totally why companies are doing this. You've got to make money. Mm-hmm. And I really don't... I agree with that, and I agree with loot boxes in theory, but when it impedes your progress and makes things much more difficult, I think that's where a line has to be drawn, and that's where the consumer has to basically jump in, kind of like we tried to do with pre-orders once upon a time, and just say, no, I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm. So my question, I guess, and we're going to continue to explore this as we move forward, but we say, okay, we don't want it tied to things that are going to affect the gameplay. And I agree with you. What, in your mind, is the ideal way of approaching the loot box system where it's a win-win for both us as gamers, but also for publishers and developers who are trying to recoup the money that it takes to make these big games, and especially in the games as services world where you're not laying off 2/3 of your staff when the game launches because you got to keep everybody on to continue developing for the game.
I have something, Larry. You want to go?
I think it's definitely safe to base it on the cosmetic items. Like, that's always going to be a safe bet. You and I talked a couple weeks ago, and I won't get into detail because I fear I'll step on your points, but we talked about ways of removing the mystery from it. The loot box system basically capitalizes on the same compulsions that gambling capitalizes on. Well, if I get it, I might get lucky in this one and get what I want. And, that's fine for the people that have that compulsion, you're gonna draw them in for sure. But for people like me who I am not a risk-taking guy.
Especially when it comes to money.
Phantom Rhythm, watching the show today, he used to drive me around in his car, and I hated it because he was a risk-taking guy. I obey the speed limit. I use my turn signal all the time. I'm not taking chances on your loot boxes.
Yeah.
And for someone like me, you have to have like a safer option. So if I pay this much, I'm going to get this item. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm way more likely to do that than to drop a bunch of money on the chance that I might get what I'm trying to get.
I'm the same exact, because in my opinion, I am not receiving anything tangible from purchasing a loot box. I will never purchase a loot box because I don't get to keep anything.
Mm-hmm. You may not even play the game within a year's time or something like that.
Right, and so I'm never gonna spend money for the opportunity to possibly get something, But Halloween event rolls around for Overwatch. There's a skin I really like. I can pay $1.99 for that skin. Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And so I think you'll have some people that they want every skin imaginable, right? So they're either gonna spend, how many skins are there per update? Probably 10, 11?
I think this one's more like 5 or 6.
Yeah, there weren't a lot this time. But usually you're right, it's like 10-ish.
But you're hitting everybody for, $20 or whatever. Price it at whatever you need to price it at, and people will justify it, I guess. You'll have some people it'll be too expensive for, but that's anything in life.
You're saying let them either buy them a la carte or let them buy them all together?
Yeah. Or people are completionists. They want all the voice lines. They want everything. Say, hey, at the beginning of this event, you pay $24.99, you get everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. I and there may be more to this than I currently know, but with Friday the 13th, the only real... Was that your dog?
I think that was my dog, yeah.
Was that a fart?
No,
or was
that was her groaning.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Friday the 13th. The only real DLC that they've had for that, they've added a map for free, awesome. Added a counselor for free, awesome. A Jason for free, awesome. That totally on board, kind of like you said with the season pass discussion. No, you're not paying for extra content like that anymore. What they have offered in terms of additional financial compensation is you can buy they came out with a spring break pack for the counselors, which basically is each counselor has either 1 or 2 swimsuits a piece, or bathing suits, something kind of more summery or spring fashion apparel. And so you have Chad, who's the kind of douchey preppy guy. He's normally in the game he's dressed in a khakis and a shirt like I'm wearing right now, kind of buttoned down Oxford blue, and a sweater draped around his neck. And in the game, if you get the Spring Break DLC, he's got a Speedo on. Right. Either one, I don't understand why you're doing where you're wearing this at nighttime in a camp, but oh well.
You never do night swims? Night swims are a blast.
Not in Speedos. There's snakes out there. There's snakes afoot.
When you're my shade of white, you only swim at night.
And there's also... I agree with you on that. Samesies. The other DLC that I've noticed really is they added emotes, which you get a good deal of them for free, which I never use, even when I'm not playing with a mic, but they could be useful, and kind of like they are in Overwatch, and or not emotes, but the pointing and for communication. You can point at something, you can wave, you can jump around if you're really urgent. They also added one where you're kind of... Is this dab? What is dabbing?
Dabbing is where you put your face inside your elbow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do it.
Okay. I don't know if this is dabbing
when you have to sneeze, you're
but there's this kind of funky dance. Anybody that's watching the video can kind of see. And you're just kind of head down. Not Bernie.
Yeah, that's not dabbing.
Bernie was head up. Right. Never mind. But so yeah, because it's cool, goofy dance. And I've seen a ton of people doing this. And a ton of people with the Spring Break DLC. And all the skins for the counselors are $2.99. I don't know about the emote DLC. I haven't looked into that. And I don't know also whether this is something kind of like the Tom Savini Jason skin, which was included if you pre-ordered the game or if you donated to the Kickstarter once upon a time. I don't know if they've included that for players like that contributed. But if not, I mean, either way, I've considered buying these skins, and I've considered doing this, and I have no problem with it because A, it's dirt cheap, B, it's just something cool. It's not going to break the bank. I'm not going to spend time on loot boxes and things like that.
So what if they did it like this? They say, okay, let's just take Overwatch, for example. That's what all three of us are most familiar with. Salty as Chuck tells us there's 8 new skins in this Overwatch. So you do $1.99 a skin. Or you say you get everything with the Halloween update, voice lines, emotes, everything, $24.99. Or you can continue to do loot boxes, but one of the items you can find in the loot box is the all access thing. So because obviously, look, no, they're not fooling anybody. Like you said, they are taking advantage of the feeling of gambling and hey, I might get something for close to nothing, But the way you maintain that by saying, oh well, I could just buy it for $24.99. Well, I'll just do that, and then you're losing all these people that are spending $60, $70, $80 on loot boxes or whatever, is by saying, hey.
But how many people actually do that? I wish that there were some statistics.
I mean, I'm sure there's something floating out there that we could see, but I imagine there's enough of those to offset the people like me who haven't spent a dime.
Right.
But because then what you do is you're like, okay, well, I just bought $20 worth or $10 worth of loot boxes or whatever, didn't get anything. Might as well just spend the $24.99. And boom, you've hit that person for 10 more bucks than you are the people that just buy it outright. So I think there are creative ways to continue to take advantage of that feeling, I guess, that people get. I also, and this is a totally separate point, but they do sub accounts on PlayStation for minors or whatever.
Right.
And I think the loot box system should be cut off from those people. From kids.
Nobody wants Junior using your credit card accidentally.
And not even so much that, but it's just it is gambling. Yeah. And it does trigger those same neurons in your brain that and gives you that same chemical response that you get from, gambling at a blackjack table.
All that serotonin just flowing to the forefront. Not to digress too much, I did it one time. I think I did spend 20 or some amount like that on Overwatch when, I forget what event it was, I was really trying to get the Diva Cruiser skin. Because I really liked that. It made me realize, I don't understand trying to completionists to get everything for that game, because you might get a skin for your favorite character, but then it's going to get replaced in a couple of months by another skin, and you can only have but so many skins. It's not like Destiny where you can piece together bits and pieces of each.
Yeah.
I would like that, maybe. Mm-hmm. Make it so.
Go ahead.
Something I think that would be an interesting way to make money, but probably not cost very much, would be to do a tournament. You used to be able to roll up in GameStop at releases, and all you did was sign and play the tournament. But say, all right, you pay $5, $10 for your slot, and you have to be here on these days at these times. This is when we're doing the tournament. If you don't show up, you forfeit. Sorry about it. It's up to you to show up. But you could just have a ton of people just jump in to try and prove that they're the best. And you know what I'm saying? It'd be pretty cool.
Pokemon style.
Give a little prize at the end. It'd be neat.
I think merch could play, actual concrete merch would be. Some games do have that to an extent. Overwatch has a lot of merch, either statues or toys or plushes, T-shirts, everything. I would really like to have a Friday the 13th. Something. Mm-hmm. To stick it either on my little not toy shelf. It sounds really immature. But
it's a shelf full of toys.
Just overflowing with TY Beanie Babies.
I eat fruit.
Like GameStop collectibles that they sell. Game Freak, stuff like that. Or Think Geek, not Game Freak.
Whatever.
Yeah. I saw... Yeah, not to digress too much. I really wish...
Digressing is saying... Let me boil this down to the point. You're just being tangential.
I do. We went to Woods of Terror a couple of weeks ago. I saw this guy in a Jason Voorhees Friday the 13th hockey jersey.
I thought digressing was being tangential.
No, you say, but I digress, and then you get to your point.
Oh, that's the threat of.
I thought it was I have you're stating that you have digressed.
Really?
So I need to get back to what I was.
But I've digressed.
You say I digress. But
I think that we have.
Oh, I am.
I think we got a big digress going on right
Look,
now.
we live in the modern era. You continue. I'll look it up.
All right, we got a fact checker on our hands.
Yeah.
Fake news.
Wrong.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna digress
Wrong.
to our next story in this this topic that I'm doing that's taking forever. But we're covering news as well. So it came out this week that Activision had taken out a patent for a matchmaking system that encourages microtransactions. So this is from Eddie over at GameSpot.
Eddie.
It says, microtransaction systems are much discussed and controversial topic in gaming. They make publishers a lot of money in part because the margins are so high, so you can expect them to stick around. Now it's been revealed that gaming giant Activision holds a patent for a system that, quote, drives microtransactions in multiplayer video games, end quote. U.S. patent number 9789406 was filed in 2015, but only granted to Activision this week, according to public records spotted by Rolling Stone. The patent's description explains that it's for a, quote, system and method, end quote, for encouraging players to spend money on microtransactions. It doesn't specify any titles, but many of Activision's biggest games have microtransaction systems, such as the Destiny and Call of Duty franchises, along with Overwatch from Blizzard. Importantly, the patent does not say if the system is actually used in any Activision or Blizzard games. The patent's description further specifies that its system and methods can include matchmaking systems that influence buying behaviors. Quote, the system may match a more expert marquee player with a junior player to encourage the junior player to make game-related purchases of items possessed and used by the marquee player. A junior player may wish to emulate the marquee player by obtaining weapons or other items used by the marquee player, end quote. One specific example is that Activision's microtransaction system might match a player with expert sniper skills with a less skilled player. The idea is that the player with less skill would see the better player performing well, which in turn might encourage them to spend money on microtransactions that could help them get better. The system goes further, quote, in one implementation, when a player makes a game-related purchase, the microtransaction engine may encourage future purchases by matching the player in a gameplay session that will utilize the game-related purchase. Doing so may enhance a level of enjoyment by the player for the game-related purchase, which may encourage future purchases, end quote. So, Activision did release a statement, and it said that it was an exploratory patent. It said, quote, this was an exploratory patent filed in 2015 by an R&D team working independently from our game studios. It has not been implemented in-game, end quote. All right. Lot to digest there. Go ahead, Larry.
So, all right, there's no way...
I think we got a digression going on. Do we have a digression going on?
When you digress, you leave the main topic temporarily.
Okay.
But I digress.
In your face. In your face. In your face.
It's weird English.
Anyway, so there's no way that once the public got a hold of this patent that this is going to be perceived as anything but scummy, right?
Right.
So,
Which is shocking from Activision.
I just really love that they patented this. Like, we don't want any other company to be able to look as scummy as we look.
But in a sense, it's also brilliant.
Yeah.
On their part. I mean, because look, we are at the point already where the scumminess on the surface doesn't matter. There's so much scumminess going on, but it continues to go on, and you know why? Because people spend money on it. Like,
yeah.
So it doesn't matter what the perception of it is. And the fact is if you license a system like this and it works, you can then license it out to other people. You know, and so. I agree with you completely. I know it sounds like I'm disagreeing. It looks scummy, and it is scummy, but I do think some of the wording in the patent is, what's the word I'm looking for? It misrepresents what the system's actually doing. So in the system, it's saying, okay, we're going to matchmake you with a marquee player, and you will be able to see them using these items, and it will encourage you. But I think in reality, if you are getting beat in a video game, it's never your fault, right?
Right.
So it's always there's lag or they have something better than me or blah, blah, blah. So it matches you with the better player who's going to beat you regardless of the equipment they're running. But if they're running this equipment you can pay for with microtransactions or whatever, what it triggers in your mind is, oh, well, he just beat me because he has that sniper rifle. If I had that sniper rifle, I'd be able to beat him.
Unless it's there's some pay-to-win stuff going on, in which case maybe, yeah, you see how how much further the gap is with someone that has a certain gun that you can only buy or a certain skill that you can only buy that makes you like, well, crap, I'm never going to be able to do well in this game unless I buy this thing that this guy has. Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it plays on several different psychological levels, but I think the scummiest of it is we're going to break our matchmaking system, which... boiling a matchmaking system down to what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to evenly match you with players, right?
Right.
But they are going to undercut the integrity of their own matchmaking system in order to promote microtransactions. That's what it says. Regardless of how they're aiming to do it, that's the way that it reads. And so, I don't like this at all. I understand trying to figure out, and look, they haven't put it in any games or whatever. It's exploratory. That's neither here nor there. You can either believe them or you don't. But I think it just goes to show that publishers are looking at everything to try to figure out. Like, we are losing money with these 9-figure budget games releasing at $60. The season pass didn't work. You know, all these different methods we have aren't working. So how can we recoup it? And they're just searching every far corner of the world for it. And down to scummy stuff like, let's break our own matchmaking system. So, all right.
You're right.
Next, another thing resulting from the price of video games being stuck at $60 for the last 25 years, or probably closer to 30 years. Visceral Games is closing, and the Star Wars game that Amy Hennig was working on is going to be changing direction. So this is from Michael McWhirter over at Polygon. It says Electronic Arts is shutting down its Visceral Games studio and making major changes to the team's in-development Star Wars project, EA Executive Vice President Patrick Soderlund announced today. Visceral has been working on an action-adventure game set in the Star Wars universe in some form since 2013, when EA and Disney announced a multi-year deal. It's been described as a story-based linear adventure in the style of Naughty Dog's Uncharted series, but based on comments from Soderlund, EA is making a, quote, significant change, end quote, to that title. All right, here's a big quote from Soderlund. Quote, throughout the development process, we have been testing the game concept with players, listening to the feedback about what and how they want to play, and closely tracking fundamental shifts in the marketplace. It has become clear that to deliver an experience that players will want to come back to and enjoy for a long time to come, we needed to pivot the design. We will maintain the stunning visuals, authenticity in the Star Wars universe, and focus on bringing a Star Wars story to life. Importantly, we are shifting the game to be a broader experience that allows for more variety and player agency, leaning into the capabilities of our Frostbite engine and reimagining central elements of the game to give players a Star Wars adventure of greater depth and breadth to explore. End quote. All right, Larry. What do you make of this?
I am sad that Visceral's not going to be doing this Star Wars game now. And we've already talked about this a little bit. So basically we're looking at the loss of a single player, of like a straightforward single player narrative in favor of a much broader, probably more generic experience. So I'm not pleased by this news. Now, I am no Star Wars fiend, all right? But
don't lie.
If I understand correctly, we've been missing kind of like a very poignant story being told in a Star Wars video game, correct?
Yeah.
Like Battlefront's a retelling of all of these other things. Knights of the Old Republic is more like an MMO kind of deal, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, the idea is hopefully with Battlefront 2 that we're getting some kind of poignant saga-spanning story.
Right, but the place that they're resting their laurels on the multiplayer, right? You know.
Yes and no.
Well, I think the single player is more of a marketing decision, right? Because so many people thought that was missing.
I'd agree with that.
And I'm interested to see, because I've read a little bit about the story for Battlefront 2, and the things that I'm hearing are like generic, uncreative, those sorts of things. But here's the thing. Now, I'm only familiar with the movies, but the movies are pretty campy in terms of like the storytelling, right?
They're supposed to be, but yeah.
Right, but saying something is campy in order to sound critical of it may not be taking into the account the entire universe that it existed, which is something that is designed to be kind of campy. I mean, it's a series that started back in the 70s, to tell a story of good versus evil.
Lucas, in an interview recently, said, all right, and let's finally just... I can't remember how to word it, but it's more or less, let's just be upfront about it. Star Wars is a movie made for 12-year-olds.
Well, Lucas, that's how he ruined that prequel series.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I think he catered that more towards than the previous ones. But
I digress.
But I digress. We're just full we got digressions coming out the yin yang.
But my point being, not having this game, which with Amy Hennig being behind it, and the pedigree that she brings from her time with the Uncharted series and all that, we are missing something in the Star Wars video game universe. I believe that this game was going to be able to fill in, but like you said, there's no money in it. And Salty as Chuck, I think, said, are they losing money, or are they wanting to just edge out a little more? And the fact of the matter is, they're probably losing money.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars is not a cheap franchise, I would assume, to try to lock up and to do it correctly. And this game was going on its 4th year of development and was probably going to take another year to come. Like, the budget was probably getting a little out of control, and so I think they were looking at the financials and saying, if we launch this game in 2018, it's going to take like monumental sales for us to recoup this money. Whereas if we step back and we reshape this into some sort of game as a service, then we may be able to recuperate that money. And so, but if you look at gaming, there was a story I saw, I think today, about how Resident Evil 7 shipped 4 million copies, but it still was a commercial failure. You think about games like Prey 2. You think about games like Prey. You think about Dishonored 2. You think about Mass Effect Andromeda. Like, all of these games that are big budget AAA single player games, and that's why I think Assassin's Creed is so interesting. Like, they stepped back 2 years ago in a market that was still really craving games like this, and in order to refocus and create something great to stand out in that genre, and now they're launching into a place where that genre really doesn't even exist.
But also, and I think what kind of adds to the level of interest in this is that so many open world games now basically just saw what the original Assassin's Creed did, and maybe Assassin's Creed 2, and have taken that as their own and kind of iterated on it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's what happens with this game is what makes it so important, because if it does something really great, if they've kind of changed the formula in some fantastic ways, then we're going to see a lot more of it. If not, God knows what we're going to see.
Yeah. Well, EA is a rudder for the industry, in my opinion. Like, when EA moves, I think the rest of the industry tends to move as well. And EA's been trying to figure out how to give legs to all of the titles across all their genres. You've got the Ultimate Team stuff throughout the sports titles, and that generates a lot of money. And they're going to be doing Anthem, which is going to be a Destiny style game, and so they're really pivoting to this games as services idea. And I think what we're going to see is Ubisoft. We're going to see, I don't know if Bethesda, definitely not Rockstar. Well, even Rockstar,
with the online
stuff,
Online
like GTA 5 came out 4 or 5 years ago.
Longer than that, I think.
It's been a long time, but they're continuing to generate tons of cash off of it because of the service that they've generated around it. And so we're seeing a massive shift in the industry right now that's just really interesting to me, but also a little disheartening, because I like games where I can sit down and I don't have to put on a headset and chat with other people.
That's something for me, and I know Larry empathizes with me too. Part of the reason I bought a Switch was because of things like Breath of the Wild and games where I can, single player games where once this little chap comes along, I won't have to worry about hey guys, I gotta pause the raid, I've gotta pause whatever I'm doing, I'm gonna be AFK for 10-15 minutes, and then I'm holding up my friends, I'm impeding my progress. It's gonna be great to just be able to hit pause, and if there comes a time soon where the pause button just doesn't exist,
Yeah.
It's funny because on PS4's controller, you don't have
It doesn't. It's an
yeah,
options
it doesn't.
button.
It's an options button. You know, I'm gonna be. I don't know where my gaming is gonna go if this kind of widely becomes the case.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to read this comment. Jin the Pixie says, Battlefront 2 isn't worth the money. It feels like a watered-down upgrade with minimal impact on the buyer to make them want to buy it. And that's exactly what I see when I look at Battlefront 2. And my worry is that's what I'm going to see with whatever they turn the Visceral game into. It's just, hey, here's some generic game we put together, and it's Star Wars, though. Come get it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, compared to you guys, I played a lot of Battlefront 1. A lot of Battlefront 1. So I know, like, for me, no matter what's going on, I'm probably just going to keep playing. I'm probably going to play the DLC. We'll see where this bonus content, this pay-to-win thing, we'll see how it pans out. I'm still excited for the game, but that's a choice that I make. It's conscious.
All right. Let's move on to the news. All right. First item on the list is from our boy Eddie over at GameSpot.
Ready?
Pause. Digression. How much does this guy write?
He's like the news editor.
He's
so
the
does
news
all
editor.
Yeah.
I feel like I see more out of this guy than I see out of any other.
Yeah. He's on the ball,
news
man.
dude.
He's grinding.
I
He's
imagine that
pumping
this
them out.
guy's like in a sweatshop somewhere in Nam, and like old school style, and he's like
on a typewriter.
He's just sitting at a typewriter smoking cigarettes nonstop, like with like sweat pouring out of his body. He hasn't shaved, showered, pooped on a toilet in days, in weeks, and he's just. I mean, he can't stop smoking and drinking coffee and stuff. It's keeping him awake. Pepe Sylvia, and you know he's just churning this stuff out like 24/7. There's no rest. Anyway.
A big new update for the Nintendo Switch is out now. Update 4.0.0 adds a number of notable and welcome features, perhaps the biggest of which are video capture support and the ability to transfer data to a new system. It also added support for wireless headphone support, so you can plug in a USB thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's good to see Nintendo supporting their stuff, but everything they do kind of feels like a half measure to me, right?
It's like my attitude just kind of is. You mentioned the what is it? What was I talking about earlier?
The data transfer.
Yeah.
So you can transfer user and save data to another Switch, but from the way I understand it, you've got to be like on the same network in order to do it. It's not like it's tied to your account.
You have to have two Switches.
Yeah.
There's no cloud aspect to it.
It's not like a seamless cloud.
I read this and I was like, great. One of my biggest fears is I just got this Switch. I have a warranty on it, so anything that happens to it, it's covered. But I lose the 100 or so hours that I put into Breath of the Wild. I lose the 70-some shrines, the outfits, everything. And then that's just time wasted. I'll never get to finish it because I'm not going to go back and redo all that over and over again. Mm-hmm. That's a huge fear that I have. And I saw this. It gave me a little bit of hope. But under what circumstances would you want to port your save permanently? You can't switch it back and forth from what I understand.
Yeah.
Why would I buy a second Switch and permanently transfer all my data to this second Switch?
Because you just bought a special edition Switch.
Yeah, that's probably the
Sure.
probably the gist.
Sure.
But I don't know. But
It's a step forward.
I do want to take a step back just to appreciate the fact that like Nintendo wasn't teasing for a month and a half that they had an update coming out. They just dropped an update that added a bunch of cool features.
I agree. I concur.
So
And two, also, even though that it's not kind of spread widely across more than a couple of games, I do like the fact that I can upload video now.
yeah.
And I'm sure that'll get implemented in more games as they move forward.
Oh, for shizzle.
All right, next item on the list, staying with the Switch here. The Switch dominated Nintendo dominated in hardware sales in the month of September. It says, ahead of the NPD Group's latest monthly report, Nintendo has come out in front to share the company's positive news. Switch not only outsold the competition in the United States during the month, but combined with sales of the 3DS and SNES Classic Edition, Nintendo dominated the hardware sales space. New Nintendo NPD reports are often but not always accompanied by press releases from the various console manufacturers, putting some spin on the numbers. In a release issued Much earlier than usual, Nintendo revealed the NPD report will show that the Switch outsold both the PS4 and Xbox One in the US during September. It's the third month in a row that's been true, and the fifth time in Switch's 7 months of availability that it's been the case. So, we're moving into the holiday season. I was making holiday promotional materials for Deciphered today. It made me sick to my stomach. But... How are we feeling about where Switch is, the Switch is right now, moving into the holiday?
Loving every minute of it.
As someone who's been super pessimistic about Nintendo for several years now, for the whole duration of this podcast, if you look back, you will find that I was pretty sure this was Nintendo's last stand and they were done in the home console market. But they have turned that ship right around. I think it's looking good for them, and it's only going to get better the closer we get to Christmas.
Yeah, it's got to be on the top of like every kid's Christmas list, just about.
It was kind of cool that a couple weeks ago now I was subbing at a school close by, and a few kids just like it was like a computer class basically, like teaching kids how to use them. And I look over and I see a kid with the exact same Switch case that I have, and I look over again and another kid has the exact same Switch, and like it just reminded me of why I love this thing so much. It goes wherever you want to go. It's there, and it's not something you
except
have to
in the shower. Don't take it in the shower.
Yeah, don't do that. There's no life-proof case for it yet. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is what a console should be, and I'm so happy that it's getting out there now, that people have it, and I can start talking about it with children.
Yeah.
I still want to see more third-party support, but as it's successful, I have no doubt that the third-party support's going to follow.
Oh, and it is.
And we're seeing it.
Doom, we got all those Bethesda titles lining up, and
there was a story 2 weeks ago that we didn't cover just because it was old news.
Old news.
But that Nintendo was actively looking for more M-rated games to go on their systems from third parties. So I think as we see them warm more up to the idea of being a console for all people and not just like the family-friendly thing, I think we're going to start to see more of that. But I think they're going to sell them as fast as they can make them in November and December. So I'm excited to see it. It's good. Competition is good, and I think a strong Nintendo is good for everybody, especially with all the just whirlwind of crap that's going on around what we just talked about on the other fronts. So, all right. Next item on the list. This is from Oscar Deus, which is one of Eddie's pen names over at GameSpot.
Hold the phone. He's got pseudonyms?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I like the fact that you believe me, but yeah, he has to get up from his desk to clock out, and then he clocks back in as Oscar Deus so he can work another 12 hours.
By day, Eddie
goes back to his car.
Sweatshop writer. By night, what's this guy's name?
Oscar Deus.
Sweatshop writer.
He clocks out, goes out to his car, sets his coffee on the dash, opens the glove box, pulls out one of those mustache glasses disguises, takes the coffee, and walks back in.
Gosh, gets 2 paychecks. It'd be awesome. All right. But this is about Sony publishing Nintendo Switch and PC games under a new label. Story reads, a division of Sony is to publish video games for, among other consoles, Switch, the company has announced. There's a lot of comments in that sentence. Sony Music Entertainment has launched a new publishing label called Untitled, which is a terrible name.
Yeah.
Whose upcoming projects include a game called Tiny Metal. That's coming to Nintendo's hybrid console as well as PC and PS4. Untie's terrible name has so far revealed 3 more projects, 1 for PS4 and 2 listed for PC and TBA, hinting they could come to other platforms later on. Sony Music says the label has been set up, quote, to unearth high-quality indie titles and utilize SME's vast entertainment business wisdom in order to expose them to as many consumers as possible, end quote. It went on to say it intends, quote, to free creators from the myriad ties that bind them when it comes to publishing their games and make free, limitless publishing a reality, end quote. So, Larry.
Yeah?
You said you wanted more third-party publishers. What about first-party publishers?
You know, I'll take those too.
What about first-party publishers that don't actually own the hardware?
I'll take that too.
All right, well, I guess that technically makes them a third-party publisher.
I hope that, I know this is unlikely since it's an older game, but man, I would love to see like Until Dawn on the Switch. That would be so great. Like, that is a great game for the Switch in my mind. Like, I'm just going along enjoying the story. Mm-hmm. Or at least, like, I know that's not Sony directly, but...
All right. It's interesting, like, the motion controls from Until Dawn, like, with the DualShock 4, would really work really well with the Switch.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to... I mean, I think that'd be awesome. I don't think we're going to see anything that's going to undercut some of the, like, bigger titles that make people want to buy the PS4. As I said, you know, it's mostly going to be about unearthing indies and stuff like that. So.
Or indies, quote unquote. It's like that. There's this thing where when I was first trying to understand like craft beer or something like that, mm-hmm. There are companies that you think are craft beers, but they're owned by like Anheuser-Busch,
right?
Or one
like,
of the
like Blue Moon,
or
Shock Top,
basically, exactly. I feel like this is kind of the same thing, but in video game terms. Like Switch is quickly becoming like the indie machine, mm-hmm. because so indie games like Shovel Knight, I played on PS4, enjoyed it, but I was like, I really wish that I could play this handheld. I know I could have if I bought a Vita, but who wants to buy a Vita? You've had 3 of them, but but yeah. So I feel like this is a way for them to get into that market, and it's like that. It's almost like that same kind of thing. You're purchasing this game from Sony as a first party studio, but you're getting it under the cool hip name of Unties. and it's trickery. It's tomfoolery. It's foolishness.
Yo, dog, let me get some of those undies over
Undies. It's like a little English boy talking about his aunt, like, I want my auntie.
Sort of. Let's move on to everybody's favorite segment, the random question of the week.
Brevity.
I would like to call it the digression of the week.
Random digression of the week. It's my turn, right?
Seth,
talk to me.
You talk to me. What is your question?
My question. Something that I think we'll all have very different answers for, and kind of almost like in not opposites, but just different, just totally different. I want to know, at what point in your life did you realize your calling, like your professional calling, what you want to be? How did you discover it, and when did you discover it? Should I go first?
Sure.
Sure. For me, trick question. I don't really think that I have one. Surprise. There was a time where I thought I wanted to be a teacher. I went to school, majored in English literature. Kind of decided that teaching wasn't necessarily for me. I enjoy being a people person. I enjoy getting out there, but I also enjoy staying in my shell. I get in my comfort zone from time to time. Mm-hmm. And teaching my aunties with a cat, just like sitting right here, just rubbing the cat. Aunties.
We understand.
Yeah,
we got the picture.
So,
haven't bathed in days.
Haven't bathed in days. I am a sweatshop writer. But yeah, so I'm at this weird stage in life. I don't want to necessarily call it like being lost.
I'm sorry. Salty as Chuck says English literature major, and he comes up with butt bugs.
It's alliterative. It's fancy. It's cool. Fantastic. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it being like lost in life, although in a way you could look at it that way, but I don't necessarily know that I have a calling like
a professional calling.
Yeah, like you imagine yourself finding like early on. I think that it's ludicrous that kids when they're 17, 18 years old have to pick a vein, mm-hmm. have to pick a stream to jump into and to keep swimming in, and if you decide to change streams, you're looking at more school, more money, and you've already wasted, in a way, some time and some money. But I don't think that education is ever a waste of money. I don't demerit my degree in any way because I loved what I was doing, and I think that the experience in and of itself is something that everybody should experience, even if it's just moving away from home and not going to school, but getting away from that safety net of having mom and dad a few miles away. So yeah, I can't say that I've found that calling. I've experimented with some things. Again, I'm going to be experimenting a lot more, trying to find something that maybe isn't necessarily a calling per se, but something that I really enjoy and something that makes the time, like the dream of just they say it's don't look for a job, look for a career, look for something that you don't dread going to work every day.
Yeah. I completely agree with you, man. About the whole, like, I think it's completely asinine that we ask people at 17, 18 years old to make not only a professional decision, but a crippling financial decision as well. Like, to choose a path and to figure out what you want to do. So, because that kind of segues into my story. So, my entire life, I thought I was being called into ministry. And I'm gifted in a lot of ways towards ministry. I don't mind people. It's weird. I love deeply, not broadly, right? So like there are people at the church I worked at who mean an awful lot to me, but then there's other people that I'm like, eh. But I feel like I'm a good teacher. I'm a good speaker. I'm a good organizer. I'm a good visionary. Like I had the skill set to do it. And then as I got in it, I started to become disillusioned with it a lot.
With the business side of things.
With the business side, with the business side of things, and with the fact that I was told from the time I was 7 I was going to be a minister, and I think I started to realize a couple of years ago, like, holy cow, I've been doing what everybody told me I was going to do, right? And the problem with having an existential midlife crisis like that is you don't necessarily know if you're having it just to be angsty, or if you're having it because you legitimately feel like you've kind of missed out on something.
Yeah, there's a degree to where you're like, it's like the grass being greener.
Yeah. In
a way, like you've done something for a while, or maybe you haven't done it yet, and there's this fear of like, could I do more? Could I do something else and be happier? You don't know if it's panic or fear, or if it's if you are experiencing a true calling necessarily, or a disillusionment.
Right. But I don't know. I just reached a point where I was like, let's see what life looks like if I go and do some things that I feel like I want to do. Things that nobody has ever told me you need to try to do that. Like, so I work at GameStop as like a necessity to carry over some things, but I've gotten into writing. I do quite a bit of writing now. I've launched my own business, and I think like my calling is I think you can be called to more than just a career, right?
Yeah.
Like I think you can be called to utilize a talent, utilize a capability, and I think for me it's just I want to be in something where I can be creative. So like the aspect of ministry I enjoyed the most was sitting and planning out the direction and the future and the steps it took to get to different places. And so for me, that was a creative outlet in a lot of ways. Creating materials to train people with, or figuring out how we were going to market a service or a project, or something that we were going to launch. Like, those were the aspects of ministry that I really enjoyed. And so I think for me, it's just, I'm going to be happy as long as I have somewhere where I can feel like I'm creative and where I don't have to wear a tie.
I kind of enjoy dressing up a little
bit. Do you? See, I'm like, if I never wear a tie ever again, I'm totally cool.
I'm kind of in the same vein as you, though. Like, I guess more than a professional calling, like I didn't want to be a doctor, a baker, a candlestick maker. I think mine is, the older I get, I want to be, and having worked the jobs that I have so far in life, I want to be valued. Mm-hmm. I want to go into work and have someone like appreciate me. And not necessarily even in work, like in life in and of itself. And I'm trying to structure my life that way to where like somebody doesn't just see me walk in and say, "Oh, there's Seth. There's Doogie. What's good?" I want them to be like, I want them when I go away to be like,
he added something here.
Like, that guy. Mm-hmm. Like, doesn't necessarily have to be the best that ever did the job, but like, that guy brought a light into this place. And working as a server in a restaurant, it's like, yeah, it probably affected some people's lives in a good way, but some people just probably are so dredged down by the work that they're like, another one bites the dust, because there's such a high turnover.
Right.
Working as a sub, you don't really have anybody over you. They're like, you don't have, you're answering to people, but you also don't have like performance review ever, unless you just really do something wrong, which I've so far, so good. But, you have the students. Some of them, like, once you get to know them, once you've seen them a bunch of times, or, like, they'll smile and they see you, they're like, "Hey, like, awesome. I had like one girl say like one of the best subs I've ever had, and I'm like, right on, that's awesome. But then you also like you see some of the same kids 4 or 5 times, and it's like as a collective group, they're like, guess I don't have to do anything today. You get that more often than you get a connection. So I just want to find something where I can feel valuable.
Yeah. And then you just go, guess I'm going to write another letter to the school board to see if hitting kids is allowed.
Exactly. I do get that feeling a little bit from teachers, because when you see teachers, they're like, very few of them are like, hey, they're like, they see the sub, they're on point because they want you to cover their class eventually so that they can have a day off.
Yeah. All right, Larry.
All right, so I will preface this with mine's weird, and if the viewers need to write things off as coincidence, that's totally fine, whatever.
Or providence.
At that point, I don't think you're writing it off. So there are a few things that go into this. I am in ministry still, and regardless of how life turned out, I think I would have wound up in something where the main point of the thing was helping people. That's just what I'm wired toward and what I've always had a desire to help other people.
You never helped me do anything. Continue.
First of all.
Anyway. Would that alternative have been the guy that pushes people off of like bridges when they're bungee jumping?
No. So like as a kid, I considered like police officer at one point. At one point, I wanted to be the guy who like researches new viruses to come up with cures, but then I sucked at chemistry. The last thing I wanted to do before I went into ministry was go into psychology in some way, counseling people, you know. So it was always going to be something in that vein. So here's where we throw the weird stuff in. I grew up.
It all started back in 1884.
I grew up in the charismatic branch of Christianity, and if you don't know what that means, that's the group that really believes in the miraculous events in Scripture and that those things still happen today. And so they're a little more open to certain supernatural phenomena.
You're talking about the tent revivalists?
Some of it, but not quite.
Yeah.
There's a spectrum with it.
Like everything.
Now, I do know where you can find a snake handling church if you ever want to go there, but that's not the church I grew up in.
We'll talk at dinner.
All right.
That is called my church.
I've been looking for one of those. But, so, my mom started dating this guy after she divorced my dad, and his dad, who from here on out in the conversation will be referred to as my grandfather because divorce makes families complicated. He felt that God was telling him that Larry was going to be a minister, and I'm really summarizing this. And Larry, he thought God was talking about, died, so obviously not that dude. But then my mom starts dating his son. They wind up married, and he has a dream where I'm like up in front preaching to people. And okay, that's neat. Later on, that's when I'm about 3 or 4 years old. My mom becomes a Christian when I'm in the 4th grade. A couple of years after that, she has the same dream. And you're like, okay, whatever. That's the dream is more detailed than this, but for brevity's sake.
Brevity.
But, you know, surely she's heard my grandfather discuss this before. Well, junior year of high school, a girl that I wound up dating, we weren't dating yet, one day she's like, hey, my mom has these dreams sometimes. She feels like God gives her and begins to describe the same dream. And I'm like, all right, that's a little trippy. But the whole time throughout all this happening, I was very resistant to that. As a teenager especially, I was really shy. And like the idea of like having to be in front of people in any regard or talking to strangers, which is kind of a part of ministry, like never appealed to me. And so people be like, hey, you're going to do this. I'm like, hey, no, I'm not.
Hey, don't pigeonhole me, bruh.
But at the same time, you felt this draw to help people. And so where that all came to a head was we had this youth trip where a lot of us were deeply impacted. And those things, if you work with teenagers in churches, there's like this pattern that happens. Like you take kids on this retreat or something, they get all fired up about what they believe, and then over time it fizzles out. And I didn't want to see that happen this time. And so actually, Dizzy helped me out with this. He and I like stepped up. Our youth minister wasn't there at the time. He'd been fired for being too awesome, and as a lot of youth
happens way too much in ministry.
It does. So we stepped up and like started leading the group in that regard, like trying to make sure things didn't fizzle out. And from there, I wound up getting plugged in with this group of teenagers that were like planning and implementing these. I'm blanking on the word.
Programs.
No, where you get a bunch of teenagers together in the same place.
Gatherings.
Sure, I can't believe I'm losing the word. No.
House parties.
Yeah. So
Keggers.
We're having like these big worship events all over town. Like totally led. Yeah, I'm ignoring you. Totally like planned and led by teenagers, and so I'm like getting involved in all this stuff pretty deeply. And at some point, I'm like, I am doing that thing I said I was never gonna do. So I guess I'll go to school and get the training and keep doing it because I really enjoy it. And so I'm at a place where I'm very satisfied with what I'm doing. One day you asked me a question. Do you remember
We have a lot of conversations. Larry called me 3 times Friday, so that just shows you the scope of our friendship. So
you're like, if you could get paid this much and never work again, or get paid this lesser amount and do whatever you wanted.
Yes, I do remember this.
And like I sat and I pondered it, and I was like, I'd take the lesser amount and do what I'm doing now. And like that day it kind of clicked for me. Like I never really thought about, I'm totally satisfied with what I do. I'm not totally satisfied with how it works out every day, but the thing itself.
Hence the 3 phone calls.
Yeah.
So,
but in general,
right,
I love it.
Yeah, you know what's bullcrap? That whole idea of like, get a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Like that's bull. Yeah. Like you can love a job and there's going to be days where it feels a lot like work.
I like that platitude where they say that love and hate are
2 sides of the same.
Pretty much the same thing. I think in a lot of ways that is true. Like maybe hate's a strong version of the word, but teaching in and of itself, not relating to me, but like you see teachers all the time. I don't know a teacher that doesn't just complain and complain and complain and complain and complain and complain about their job. And it is maybe not one of the hardest quote unquote jobs, but it is difficult. It's taxing. It's stressful. It sucks the life out of people for 9 months out of the year. Not 9. Yeah, 9 out of the school year. But if you're doing it right and you're doing it for the right reasons, it's the reward is the act itself, and it is the response or the result, because you get to see children have that aha moment, or even if you don't, maybe they come back to you years later and they thank you for maybe they didn't see something right at the time, maybe they gave the teacher a hard time, but they've grown and they've learned from their mistakes, and they've learned from life and they regret their actions. There are all kinds of rewards for that, and if that's who you are, that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Wish I could be that person.
And the people that get into teaching generally, like they are those people that they're looking for the impact they can have. Like
right.
You're not going to school to be a teacher to bring home the big bucks.
Yeah,
and that going in.
And if you don't, you probably shouldn't be a teacher. All right.
And ministry, in spite of what you see on television, is generally the same beast. Like. You don't go there.
It's all Joel Osteen levels, guys. Larry lives in a mansion. It's so fancy you can't even pronounce it right.
My teeth are not bright enough for me to be.
Joel Osteen once said, "The hardest thing about Sunday mornings is my face hurts that afternoon from smiling so much."
From just smiling for Jesus.
All right, let's get out of here, guys. Larry, who are you?
I'm Larry, and I'm on Twitter at LarryHuntsZombies. LarHunts Zombies.
Seth, Butt Sores, Dong Sores, Xbox Live.
Whole lower body
PSN.
thing.
A whole lot about it thing. Brevity.
I'm Luke Croft. You can find me on Twitter at TK from Antioch. We're the Player 3 Podcast over here on twitch.tv/Player3 Podcast, iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher. Leave us a review. Tell Larry to read it like Scooby-Doo, and he will Scooby-Dooby-Doo that for you. I hate myself. We are the Player 3 Podcast.
Brevity, Player 3 Podcast.
P3B.